between Rabbi and Rabbi Yossi really is built upon the machlokes by Tumas Mashkin, that according to Rabbi Yossi, he sees the whole issue of Tumas Mashkin as Rabbanan, and therefore Rav Meir as Deiraisa, right? So therefore, Rabbi Yossi holds Tumas Mashkin and Tamei Kerem as Deiraisa, right? That's what Rabbi Meir was saying. Let's read from the fourth line from the bottom. Va'azder of Meir l'taimei, Rabbi Yossi l'taimei. Rabbi Meir l'taimei don't wear Tumas Mashkin l'tamei Kerem d'Rabbanan. Rabbi Meir holds that Tumas Mashkin, in order for mashkin that are tamei to make other things tamei, other foods tamei, that's only Tumah d'Rabbanan. Rabbi Yossi time we're Tumas Mashkin l'tamei Kerem is d'Oraisa, and we explained yesterday that therefore Rabbi Yossi says that it's already tamei mid'oraisa because Tumas Mashkin is a real thing that's d'Oraisa, and therefore, right, he says, don't bring me a raya from chametz, which is only also mid'Rabbanan, and you want to be mitameh. It's only also mid'Rabbanan. Rabbi Meir holds no. He holds that Tumas Mashkin the Tamei Kerem is also d'Rabbanan. Right, so it's exactly the same case of Chayin Ganakaini, which is Tamei d'Rabbanan, and we let you be Tamei mid'Oraisa. But that's what their machlokes is dependent on. Now the Gemara brings a raya to this, that this is their machlokes, the Tanya. Shows, how do we know the Tanya? Safek Mashkin li Tamei. Tamei. If you have a suffix whether mashkin themselves will become tamei, then misafik we have to say that it's tamei, because again suffix deraisa l'chomra, right? So therefore, the fact, and the Tanakama over here hold, this is Rav Meir, right? He holds that in order for mashkin themselves to become tamei, that for sure is a deraisa concept, right? So let's say you have truma that is a mashka, right? You have liquid that's truma. So then, of course, if it becomes tamei, and Rashi says the case is let's say you have a tamei person, and you're not sure if a tamei person touched these mashkin or not. So then it's a suffix tuma, and it's also to eat the truma, right? So if the suffix is in the actual mashkin themselves, whether they become tamei, so then yes, it's a suffix. You have to work with it as if it's tamei because it's suffix deraisa. Everyone agrees. Oh, we won't see not everybody, but even Rav Meir agrees that mashkin themselves can become tamei mid'oraisa. Now, however, l'tamei acherim, but if you have a suffix whether mashkin touched something else, Rashi says, let's say you have a guy has a stick, and there's mashkin at the end of the stick, and he touches. You're not sure if he touched bread or something, right? So did those liquids, the tamei liquids, it's a suffix whether it touched the bread or not. Well, the whole concept of mashkin being mitame oichel is only d'Rabbanan, says Rav Meir, and therefore suffix d'Rabbanan lekula. Good, right? So it depends. When we're talking about mashkin becoming tamei and mashkin regards to tuma, what are we talking about? Do you mean the mashkin itself becoming tamei? Rav Meir says, of course, that's a real thing. Are you talking about the mashkin being mitame oichel? And that's what we're talking about in the Mishnah, right? That the mashkin are being mitame the oichel. Well, he says that's only d'Rabbanan. Okay. V'chein haya Rabbi Elazar Omer kidvarav, and so to Rabbi Elazar said like Rav Meir. Yehuda Omer lakol tamei, it's tamei for everything. Right. So it sounds like Yehuda holds that in all sfeikas, even yeah. It's a sefta and taharis.
Good. So we have Meir and Rabbi Elazar
saying that it depends, right? It depends if you're being mitama itself or mitama other things. Rabbi Shimon, lakol tamei, which means that it's going to be mitama. Really, he holds it's mitama everything mid'oraisa.
According to Rabbi Meir, if it was definitely tamei, it would be mitama other things.
No. The second case of l'tamei acherim is you know for sure that it's tamei, but you're not sure if it touched something else. And it's the Bryce of the Gemara is
sure it touched something else.
No.
Still
not because he holds that mid'Rabbanan it's tamei, but because only suffix d'Rabbanan, so it's l'kula. It's the way the Gemara is teaching us the sheets of the Tanaim is through these cases of suffix, and in that way we're able to see.
The second, if it touched something else, I'm not sure it did. It's it's
and then you're not sure if it touched them, right? Then
yeah,
for sure it's a
it's
suspect.
It's at the Rabbanan and it's a suffix that you touch it. So it's just,
Right. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Lakol Tama, he says no, it's mitama everything. If you have a suffix mashke, right, and you're not sure if it touched oichel or even if it touched kalim, and if you know for sure that it's tameh, in case where you know for sure the mashke is tameh, and then but you're not sure, it might have touched oichlim, it might have touched kalim, so it says Rabbi Yehuda that's tameh.
even Caleb. Wow.
Even kalim. Rabbi Yehuda goes all the way and he holds.
He holds that even mashkin touching is the raisa. Mashkin touching.
Mashkim touching kalim is the right. Right. He learns that from a pasuk. I don't know if you'd call it now, but
You don't become Caleb and Adam and Caleb don't become Tamei unless it's from another.
okay. But he learns. Rashi says he learns it from a pasuk of, basically the pasuk says when we see further on the daf, the whole mashka asher yishaseh b'chol kli yitma. We're talking about a share it's falling into a kli. Any mashka asher yishaseh b'chol kli yitma. So, and basically, Machlokes Tanaim revolves of when it says b'chol mashke yitma, right? Does that mean it itself will become tamei, or does that mean it'll make something else tamei? Yitma could mean two different things. It will be yitma, it itself, or no, yitma means it'll make something else tamei. Which one does it mean? So that's the Machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda, and he learns from the fact that the pasuk is talking about a kli, so he learns that it could even be mitam a kli. But the other Tanaim hold no. Now, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, they're mechalek. La'oichlim tmein. For oichel, it's tamei misafek because for oichlin, they do hold that yitma applies to oichlin, which means that mashkin that are tamei can be mitama oichlin, right? Midoi rice, and therefore misafek you have to assume. But lekelim taharim, if you're not sure if it touched a kli, that's tahar because that's only this is the rabbanan. That's only a tumah rabbanan. Okay, so we have three shitas. Rav Meir holds it's only mitama, only it itself is tameh, but it's not mitama anything else midaraisa. Rav Yehuda says it's mitama everything midaraisa, kalim and oichlim. Rav Yossi says it depends. Not only it itself is tameh, but also it's mitama oichlim, but not kalim. Okay, right, and that we're gonna flip us back to the Mishnah, and that's what we were saying that machlokes in the Mishnah. Fine. It says the Gemara, "V'sav Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lazar, mashken islu tuma ba'ilam." Do you mean to tell me that Rabbi Lazar said, he says, Rabbi Lazar Omer Kedvar of Rav Meir, right? Which means that he at least admits, right? Like Rav Meir, he was like Rav Meir, who at least admits that the mashkin themselves are becoming tameh. Is that true that several Lazar mashkin islu tuma ba'ilam? He holds the mashkin are susceptible to real tuma. Vatani Lazar Omer ain't tuma mashkin kol iker. And right says, well, there is no tuma for mashkin at all. And we're going to ask later on, what do you mean? It says yitma, right? We'll see. So that the Gemara says, Teda, right? So Rabbi Lazar Amar Ein Tumul Mashkin Kolik. Teda Shavei Heid Yosei Ben Yezer Ish Tzureda Al Ayil Kamtza Dechan. That is a certain type of grasshopper which is considered tar. So one of the edus is that he said, but the certain species of grasshopper is that that's mutter to eat. Whatever. That's one edus. Al Mashkin Beis Mitbachaya Dechan, right? And on the liquids that were used that came out of the basement b'chayas where they shechted in the Beis Hamikdash, right? That those liquids, which is dam and mayim, I guess that they used, right? Those things, dam v'hamayim, Rashi says, right? Those things are dechan. Dechan again means tahar. In Aramaic, dechan means tahar, right? So what he was saying, one of his edus, his second edus was that the mashkin, the liquids in the basement b'chaya, right, where they used to shecht korbanos and azara, and there would be dam there and mayim there. He said that they're tahar because he apparently held that they're not makabel tuma. And even though midirabanan usually we would be geyser mashkin, right, over here in the Beis Hamikdash we would not be geyser because if you're geyser tuma, so you're causing kachim to. So you're causing the tumah, every tumah derabbanan that you're causing the Beis Hamikdash, you're causing korbanos to be lost because whatever happened is only in korbanos, and the korbanos, right? There's a chiv to eat the midaraisa, and you midrabbanan are causing them to be called tamei. So therefore, in the Beis Hamikdash, she wasn't kaiser, right? So there's two chidushim here. The first chiddush is that he holds mashkim aren't tamei midaraisa really, right? And that's the kasha. And Rabbi Lazar is going and basing himself on this edus of Yossi ben Yezer, who was a very early Tana, right? And he's saying, therefore, ein tumas mashkin kol ikar midoraisa. And the second chiddush of Rabbi Eliezer is that that midrabanan we're not geyser because of hefsed kachim. Okay, so either way we have a steer over here because Rabbi Eliezer seemed to say like Rav Meir, right? And now he's saying that it's not matam at all. The Gemara says hani chol Shmuel. Makes sense according to Shmuel. That what does he mean that it's tahor from being mitame other things? Right? So therefore it's not a problem because that's really what Shmuel says. That's even what Yosef ben Yezer means, that it's just not mitame anything else, but itself is tame. The Rav Damar Chan Mamish, according to Rav, who says no, Taki meant that it's mamish tar, as not even that it's not mitame anything else. Ma'ikel Meimar. So Amar ben Nachman bar Yitzchak achoda. Right. So Rabbi Eliezer, who says v'chein, right? V'chein Amar Rabbi Eliezer kidvarav of Rav Meir, he means about one thing that it's not mitame, but not that it's not mitame other things, right? He means one of the chidushim of Rav Meir. Rav Meir said two chidushim. First of all, right, that it itself is mitame, and the other chiddush is that midaraisa is not mitame something else. So when Rabbi Eliezer says kidvarav, he means only like the second chiddush that it's not mitame anything else, but really he holds it's not even mitame itself. Says the Gemara, he says like his words plural, right? That means he agrees to at least more than one point, right? The nefishi, right? It's plural. It says v'chein, which again sounds like I really do agree, right? So Kashi, the Gemara says you're right. It's a Kasha. So we talk have a steer over here, right? And it doesn't. It sounds like Relaz agrees with Meir, and we know he doesn't. Okay, Kashi. Gufa, Rav Omar, Dechan Mamish, right? So Rav said that Rabbi Eliezer meant Dechan Mamish. It's Mamish Tahor 100%, not even itself is Tameh. Shmuel Amar Dechan Mila Tameh Tumas Achem Tumas Atzman Yesh Lahen. Okay, again this machlekes Rav Shmuel. Rav Omar Dechan Mamish Kasover Tumas Mashkin D'Rabbanan. He holds the whole concept of Tumas Mashkin D'Rabbanan. V'chi Gazer Rabbanan Ben Mashkin D'Alma. When were the Chacham Geyser in other Mashkin of Mashkin Beisim B'Chai Le Gazer? When in the Beis Hamikdash they weren't Geyser at all. Mashkin Beisim B'Chai, again the place of the Shchita. Ushmul Amar Dechan Mila Tameh Tumas Acherim. It's only tahar from being mitama other things. Because he holds kasavar tumas mashkin atzman or deraisa. So the Chachamim can't take that away, right? But l'tamei acherim is the Rabbanan. What is the Rabbanan? This that they can be mitama others. The chigaz Rabbanan. When were the Rabbanan geyser that the mashkin tmein are mitama acherim? Other foods that's been mashkin the alma. Mashkin esin machaya loy gazer. The chiloy gazer Rabbanan l'tmei acherim, right? And when the Rabbanan were in geyser, that's only that they cannot be mitama other things. Of Tumas Atzman nation, Tumas Atzman, of course, they have because that's a derais according to Shmuel. Okay, very very simple. Amar Rav Huna Barchinina Lebrei. When you're going from Papa Ramile, ask him the following: Me Amar Shmuel Dechan Miltami Tumas Acherim. Could it be that Shmuel Taka said that Rabbi Eliezer holds that it's tahor from being mitama tumas acherim, aval tumas atzman yesh lahen, but they themselves do have their own tuma midaraisa. Karikan vehabasar asher yiga b'chol tamei lo yechel. There's a beferish pasuk that says, "Basar asher yiga b'chol tamei lo yechel." Right now, if you acknowledge that midaraisa, right? How do you read this? How do you read this pasuk and then allow basar that touched this mashkin, right? Rav says that really midaraisa there is no tumah to mashkin, right? So if midarabanan you say there's a tumah here, right? There's no problem if basar touches that, because you say we don't do the darabanans in the base of Mikdash because of hefsed kachim, right? So therefore you're not being such to this pasuk. But according to Shmuel, who does say that midaraisa it's called tamei, right? And then read this pasuk, basar sher yiga b'chol tamei lo yachal. So how could you make that distinction and say that it itself is tamei midaraisa tumas atzmai, but if it touches other basar, it's not tamei? What do you mean? The pasuk says basar sheyiga b'chol tamei lo yachal. It's called tamei. No, you said it's tamei. What's pshat? Amar b'shish b'drab idi midi dehav revi b'kodesh. What do you mean? Just like revi b'kodesh, we know that in kachim there's a concept of revi b'kodesh, right? But that's considered tamei, right? But if revi b'kodesh touches something else, right, it's not tamei, right? So what do you see? Even though revi b'kodesh is tamei,
it's the raisa. There's revi.
I'm not sure. Well, that's what it seems. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the kasha, right? It could be even learned from Sukkim. Right? So Revi Bakar is a similar concept. It's called Tameh. Right? It's possible. We'll see. Right? It's called Tameh. And still, we say that it doesn't make Chamishi. It doesn't go further. Right? So what do you see? That even though something is Tameh, it doesn't necessarily have to fit with the Pasuk. Depends on what type of tumah it is. Right? So Maskil for Rav Ashi, Revi Bakar He says no. Revi Bakar is not called Tameh. It's called Pasal. Right? Because Yigri Tameh. Right? But this is called Tameh. Because the pasuk says Yitma, right? The pasuk actually says Yitma. So over here it's called Tameh, right? Mashenkin Riba Kodesh is not called Tameh. We call it Pasal even, right? Rashi says we learn it from a Kal V'chomer. Yeah, I guess it is Deraisa, but we learn it from a Kal V'chomer. It's not like the pasuk actually calls it Tameh, right? Therefore, we can get around it. It's not a problem. But by Mashkin, the pasuk says Yitma, and that's where you're learning it from. So you can't get out of it. Kasha. We left off the kasha. Okay. Toshima, v'chol mashka asher yishasi b'chol kli yitma. Again, this pasuk, right? Obviously, it's saying that any mashka. It's talking about a sheretz that falls into a kli, and there's a mashka in the kli. V'chol mashka asher yishasi b'chol kli yitma. So obviously, mashka is going to be tummy. How could Rav say that there's no such thing? How could Rabbi Elazar say there's no such thing? The Gemara says ma yitma hichshir. It means it can be it's teaching us that mashkin can be machshir hichshir l'kabel tumah. Hichshir, the Gemara says, Mereisha dikra shamatlei. The fact that mashkin can make an oichel susceptible to kabel tuma, that's from the beginning of the pasuk. Mikol oichel asher yochel asher yovel of my mitma, right? And we know that from the beginning of the pasuk. It says kol oichel asher yochel asher yovel of mine that had water on it. This is not. We don't need this pasuk to teach me machshirin, the concept that liquid is machshir oichel kabel tuma. Where it says no, chad b'tlushin v'chad b'mchubarim. We need one pasuk to teach me when water is disattached, it's not attached to its source. Tlushin is detached from the source. The chad m'chubar one when the water is still attached to tell us that it's machshir in both situations. It's strictly yashmina b'tlushin. If when the water is already separated from its source, it's not in the water, it's not in the ocean, or it's not in a river, a stream, or a bar, right? That it's called tlushin, right? And that I would think only with them mishum da'achshavinu, because you actually took it and you were tereach to fill up your jug of water with it. Right, so you were machshav this mashke, the mayim, and therefore it's machshav l'kabel tumah. Aval b'mchubarin, but when it's still attached to its natural source, in Malay, I would think no, because you didn't instill any chashivas. It's just there. No, that's more chashiv because it's in its original place. Aval tlushin, therefore it's chashiv. Aval tlushin in Malay, but if it's detached already, it's not chashiv. Therefore, it's really we need both psukim to teach us that mayim are mitame, mayim are machshir l'kabel tuma, even if they're tlushim, even if they're mechubar. Tashema, mayim bar mikveh mayim yatar. This is again talking about a sheretz that falls into a mayan or a bar or a mikveh mayim, right? A spring, a pit, or mikveh mayim, any gathering of water, because these things are attached to the ground, right? So therefore, yatar it's going to be tahar. In fact, the Gemara, what do you mean? Any mashka is always tahar. Right, so what's the chiddush that if a sheretz falls into a bar because it's mechubar lekarka, it's not mekabel tumah? What are you talking about? No mashka is ever mekabel tumah. So Gemara says my yatar means mitum asay. It means if a person goes into the mikvah, this pasuk and this pasuk is used to teach us that if a person goes into a mikveh mayim bar or a mayan, you become tahar. So don't think this pasuk is really teaching me that a sheretz that goes into the water is not mekabel tumah. The water is not mekabel tumah. It's teaching me dinei mikvah. That if a person goes into a mikvah, it becomes out tahar, or mayan or bar, right? Okay. Mayatar mitumah. So the person from his tumah. Utlushin says the Gemara mi machshirin. Are tlushin machshir? The Hamar Rabbi Yossi. Right now we're saying that tlushin are machshir. Hamar Rabbi Yossi b'chanina mashkin basement b'chaya. The mashkin in the basement b'chaya in the basement hamikdash where they used to shech the korban loy dayan shehin decha. Not only are they tahar, ela she'ein machshirim. They're not even machshir. Right, and now you're learning out. We just learned out that mashkin tlushin are machshir, and now he's saying that no, the mashkin basement b'chaya, right, are not even machshir. Where it says tirgam al dam. No. We know we mentioned that there's dam and there's mayim there. In the basement b'chaya, there's dam and there's mayim, right? don't think that what he said that the mashkin and the Beiset B'chaya are not machshir, he's talking about the mayim. No, the mayim are machshir, even though they're tlushin, even though they're separated from their source, from the mayon, right? It's not in the spring anymore, it's in the basement B'chaya, right? But still, avada that is machshir. When Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina said that the mashkin basement B'chaya are not machshir, he meant the dam. Rabbi Yechanan, right? Rabbi Yosef Ben Eliezer says the dam is not tamei at all, right? Not tamei, not mitam acherim. Now Rabbi Yosef Ben Chanina is saying another chiddush that it's not even machshir. Why? Rabbi Yechanan, minan the dam kodshim she'ena machshir. How do you know dam of kodshim, specifically dam of kodshim that's not machshir? Shenemar al aretz tishbechanu kamayim. The pasuk says by dam that al aretz tishbechanu kamayim. You have to throw it on the ground like water. Don't eat the dam, throw it on the ground like water, right? Dam shenishbach kamayim machshir. So dam that is thrown on the, that is like mayim, it's thrown on the ground like mayim. So then it's machshir, just like mayim, right? Just like mayim is machshir, that dam is machshir. But dam she'enin nishbach kamayim, why? Because you have to be makabel it in the kais and thrown on the mizbeach. That's not nishbach kamayim. So that's a different type of dam, and that's not, the halach is that it's not going to be machshir. It's not considered a mashke lekabel to make to machshir something else lekabel to. Maskefler of Shmuel Bar Ami, Harei Dam Tamtzis, the Nishbach Kamayim Bein Machshir. Dam Tamtzis is water that is blood that seeps out of the animal, not at the beginning in the throes of death. Dam HaNefesh is what is kosher lizrika. It has to be the dam that actually comes out right after shchita, coming out strongly, and that's when the life leaves the animal with the Dam HaNefesh. But dam tamtis is if it's still stuck in the limbs of the body or whatever, and it seeps out slowly afterwards, right? That is not kosher lizrika. It's not kosher for the mizbeach to be zerk on the mizbeach, right? Sorry, tamtis, dam tamtis, the nishbach kamayim. It is nishbach kamayim because you don't take it to the base of, you don't take it to the mizbeach, and still in a machshir, and still he's saying it's not machshir, right? He says the damit b'chaya is not machshir. Right, which means it includes all dam that's there, even dam tamsis. What do you mean? If the whole source and the whole reason why it's not because it's tlushin, right? Tlushin is makabel, tlushin is machshir, right? What's the reason? It's because it's not nishbach kamayim. Well, this isn't dam tamsis isn't nishbach kamayim. There's no din to throw the dam tamsis on the mizbeach. So I'm going to observe hanachal dam tamsis. No, leave dam tamsis. Tafilu b'chulin amilei machshir. Even if it's chulin, it's not machshir. Why? So Kibla Minei Rav Shmuel Bar Ami, he explains Dam Rachmana, how do you know Rak Chazak Levutiach Adam Ki Adam Wa Nefesh. When the pasuk refers to dam, right, and the Isser of eating dam, it says be strong not to eat the dam Ki Adam Wa Nefesh. Dam, because it calls the dam nefesh, Adam Sha Nefesh Yotze Bo Karu Dam. Only dam that the soul leaves with that, right, the life of the animal leaves with it, that's called dam. Dam Sha Nefesh Yotze Bo ain't a kari dam. That's not called dam, right? So therefore, in terms of whether dam is a mashka, which we learn Rashi brings from another pasuk, the pasuk of dam chalolim yishta, right? So that only applies to dam nefesh. Something that's not dam nefesh is not going to be considered dam. So therefore, dam tamtis is never going to be makal. Even chulin, of course, kachim is not going to be matame, right? And then regular dam kachim is not going to be matame, not because of solution, but rather because it's not nishbach kamayim and needs to go on the mizbeach. Tashma, dam shenitma v'zarkoi b'shoigeg, dam that became tamei and you threw it still on the mizbeach by mistake, right? Hurtza. Then the tzitz, right? We learn now that it's the tzitz hakodesh that Aaron wears, right, on his forehead. That's miratza, that forgives for the sins of Tumah that happened in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so different things that happened in the Beis Hamikdash Tamei by mistake, right? B'shoigeg, right? So if dam was netma and you threw it in the kain through the dam anyway, b'shoigeg hurtza, b'mezid lo hurtza, right? If you threw b'mezid, even though it was tamei, then there's no ritzui. Right now, what's the nafkamina of hurtza or not? Whether you let eat the dam, whether you let eat the basar. So guys, we shechted the carbon. The basar is there waiting to be eaten by the kohanim, by the bailam, whatever type of carbon it is, right? And then the dam becomes tummy. Kabul the dam in the mizrach and became tummy, right? So really, you're not allowed to throw it, right? And now because there's no zrika, you can't eat the basar either. It should be all gone, right? But if the kohen threw it b'shoigeg, it's fine because of the tzitz, because we have this concept of ritzui that if it's forgived, you can eat the basar, right? But if b'mezid, lo yurtza. So either way, what does this brayso teach us? Is the concept of dam shenitma.
But the dam itself
Dam is going to tame. Elazar, Rav, they're all saying there's no such concept of dam shenitma, right? So Gemara says midrabanan. You're right, really it's midrabanan. Udaloik Rabbi Eliyahu is trader. So, right, you can say that avada midoraisa there's no dam shenitma, right? But midrabanan there is dam shenitma, and that's arguing on Yosef ben Yezer, right? That not in the sense that there is tuma midoraisa. No, he's just arguing that the rabbanan were geyser. Yosef ben Yezer said the rabbanan weren't even geyser, and right according to this brayso, so you see that no, Rabbi Yosef was geyser, that the rabbanan were geyser, and that dam should be mitame. Dam should be nitma midrabanan, even though it's going to lead to have sikachim. Tashema al-matzis maratza. What is another case that sees maratza al-adam vel-abasar vel-cholav vel-chelev? If you had dam basar or chelev, shenitma. Ben b'shagi, ben b'mezid, whether it was b'shagi, whether it was b'mezid, ben b'ainis, ben b'ratzin, ben b'yachad, ben b'tzibur. Right? So again, you see what the dam basar and chelev are mitame, right? And dam is there. Didn't you say that dam is not mitame, right? The Gemara says again, midrabanan udaloi ke Yosef ben Yezer Tzareda, who holds that you're not even going to midrabanan. Tashima v'nasa arenis avon akachim v'che'eza avain hu noise im avain pigol harek varnemar lo yiratza. Right. So the Gemara wants to know which avain does it say that the tzitz is being meratza, right? Which avain is it forgiving? If it's pigol, it says harek varnemar lo yiratza, right? So the isser of pigol, if you threw the dam anyway, right, it's not going to help because the pasuk says leiratz. Even avoin noisar, if you're talking about the avoin of noisar, if someone, right, pigol is when someone thinks to eat it chutz l'zmanai. Noisar is when someone thinks to eat it chutz l'mkaimai. Right, so unless it's the opposite. Hold on a second. Yeah, pigol is chutz l'mkaimai. Noisar is pigol is chutz l'mkaimai. And Noiser is chutz l'zmanai, right? Noiser is too much time, right? It's chutz l'zmanai. So it's harek v'nemer lo yichashav. So these psukim teach you that there's no ritzui, right? Ha'ina noiser elavoin tuma shehutra mechla. Ha'ina elamai. Ha'ina noiser. What sin does it forgive? Ela avoin tuma shehutra mechlala, right? We know that tuma is hutra mechlala b'tzibur, right? That if tuma hutra b'tzibur, right? If you have right, so you're allowed to bring korbanos anyway. So therefore, just like we see that type of leniency, so too the tzitz is going to be meratz on that leniency. My love, the Gemara says, does not mean tumas dam, right? Does not mean tuma of dam, and that even though the dam becomes tame, if you bring it, even though it's tame, the tzitz is meratz. Amrav Papa, loy tumas kamatzim. It means tuma of a kaimetz. So by a mincha, right? The kaimetz that's brought to the mizbeach is equal to the dam, right? So let's say the kain becomes tamei and the kain brings it anyway. You're allowed to eat the rest of the mincha. Yes, and that's what the tzitz is meratza, right? So you don't necessarily have a raya from this right. So we're talking about dam. Maybe we're talking about the kaimitz, which is not mashka, and maybe taka the rice holds the mashka is not matam. Okay, we'll stop here. Tomorrow another raya, but then we'll get into another sugya.
Okay, sure. Have a good day.
No.